the great Pop stepping away from coaching, and he's going to be the team president for the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah.
Like I
This
said,
is a
Jerry, you already did the episode, so give us a synopsis of what you said when you did your episode.
Well, the Spurs fan that I am, and for people that know me, they know how I feel about Pop. Um, Obviously, we know that he suffered that stroke
yeah.
last year, a day after my birthday, and well wishes to him, and continue to get well soon. But it was time. Like let's just keep it all the way a buck. He should have been retired. Like he was letting it be known that when Duncan leave, he was gonna leave.
Yeah.
But he wanted to stick around, you know, and when you got that passion for coaching, you just can't go away. You just can't go
Right.
away. And it was unfortunate that it took for a stroke, unfortunately, for him to say, you know what, I'm gonna step down. Because I was kind of looking forward to seeing him, you know, coach and mentor Wemby. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's not gonna be the case. But again, the man has nothing left to prove. It's not like we're in this era now where all the OGs is leaving. Um, and he's just one of those OG coaches that, you know what, it's time for him to just leave and let Mitch Johnson take the reins. I would have preferred it be Becky Hammond, but she's in the WNBA. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. I mean, the man is the all-time winningest coach in the history of the game. If you include regular season and playoffs, the man has won 3 Coach of the Years. He's won 5 championships. The man has ushered in international players. When you think of draft,
Yep.
when you think of draft night, and you look on
Good
that
point.
draft board and you see an international player on that board, you know San Antonio is going to pick them. Like, all right, if that person is still available when this Spurs pick, chances are the Spurs is going to draft that person. And some of them come out like a diamond in the rough, some don't. But for the most part, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili, uh,
Ginobili.
Wemby, some of these international players they pick up.
Patty Mills.
Patty
Patty
Mills,
Mills.
yeah, I forgot about Patty Mills, but
Patty
yeah,
Mills.
like so,
Diago Splitter. Yeah.
yeah,
Tiago Splitter.
keep going, keep going.
And Dre, let me couple your point with this. I have had several great conversations with the longtime voice of the Spurs and Bill Schoening,
Shonen.
who recently retired. He shared so many great stories with me about that very subject that you talked about in the international players, and those are some of his favorite interviews. Met Bill and company, Tim Duncan included, in Charlotte, North Carolina, in 2020. And that was one night where Pop did not make it because he was, I believe, at the time mourning the loss of his wife.
Yes,
And
Oh man. Yeah.
yeah, he was mourning. I think that started, I don't want to say a spiral for um for Popovich, but anyone who knows how connected he was with his wife
hmm
and how involved he was with his wife, and having her, if not having her with him, then just like being on his mind, being in front of him, being in the front of his mind, that kind of took a big piece away from him. And as I said, Bill has conveyed that to me several times over. You don't want to say that started the downward spiral, but when you lose a huge piece like that, it's going to send you downward. Been
right.
there, done that. But with Pop, and he's from Maryville, Indiana. He played and coached at Maryville, the former Maryville Pirate. If y'all only knew how connected the city of Maryville is with Gregg Popovich and how many Spurs fans are now in Maryville because of him, it is uncanny the effect he's had from high school sports, high school hoops until now.
Cole, what you got to say about Pop stepping down as Spurs head coach.
Now you got to remember. No, I was in Texas, actually in Houston when he became well, actually when he actually was involved in the Spurs organization in the front office in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So we got a chance to see David Robinson shine, but not get all the way to the ring. And then, of course, you had that season where Robinson got injured and end up being in the lottery. And then here comes Tim Duncan. And then most people, not those in San Antonio and those actually were involved in the NBA in terms of fandom. Uh, besides us, most of America was like, well, who is this guy?
Mhm.
Who is this guy stepping
Mhm.
from the executive seat, and who says that he could actually coach? And then he proved that he could coach some of the best in the world.
Mhm.
And yeah, as a Rockets fan, yeah, it was frustrating. It was absolutely frustrating. But to put it in a proper perspective, this guy he is a competitor.
Mhm.
It's just no question about it. No two ways around it. He's a competitor. He definitely is a champion. And the thing about him is that he is all about the details. And what I hated about him as a person who rooted against him, being a Rockets fan, is what I would love if I were to be a fan of the Spurs, like if I was a Megan Price or if I was Dre. And that would be, this guy knows what to do with the five that's on the floor. He knows what to do in playing that defense to that elite player's strength. And of course, the biggest of them was LeBron. Okay, well, yeah, he could penetrate, but we're going to deny him the lane.
Mhm.
And if he's going to beat us, he's going to have to shoot threes or shoot from deep. And there's going to be no two ways about it.
Or just shoot from outside. Period.
Yeah, he's going. Yeah,
2014.
yeah, to shoot from outside. And we're going to deny him penetration because we know if he gets ahead of steam, even we can't stop him. But we could definitely contain him, and we know how to contain him. And he would do that with LeBron. He would do that with Kobe. He would do that with with any other big name that you can think of.
He started the Hacker Shack.
And
Yep.
he was the one. Thank you, Dre. And he was the one who started the Hacker Shack.
There's a
You know,
funny story that Bill told me on the air where 8 seconds into a game, Shaq was with the Heat at the time. Uh, he had someone foul Shaq, and there was this grin on his
No,
face.
it was the Suns. It was the Suns.
It was a son.
oh,
He
that's
was,
right. That's right. Shaq's with the Suns.
I remember
thank
watching
you,
that game.
thank you,
I remember watching that
thank
game.
you.
I was living in Far Rock at the time, and it was on TV. And I was like, "Damn, already!" And
He,
then you see Shaq looking at the bench, and he started laughing. And then Pop
Mhm.
was like this to him. Pop was like this to him.
he knew. Shaq knew what was going on, and so did Pop. Pop knew what was going on, but that should tell you more about the complete person that Gregg Popovich is.
And then on top of it, if you thought he was just all about coaching, the personality just shone through. And I loved how he made him. I loved how he made a mockery out of the first and third quarter interview process when they asked a couple of
Yeah,
questions.
yeah.
I loved how he made a mockery of it,
People
but
were
I
scared
also
to
loved
interview him.
but I also loved how the journalists who did it knew. Oh, it's like, oh, he's not being a jerk on purpose. He's doing it because
No.
he hates
He ain't
hates
doing
this.
it. Yeah, he ain't doing it.
Yeah, he ain't
Mhm.
doing it, not them.
They
So
understood, but
and
you
they
know,
understood it.
it's a sensitive motherfucker.
And
But
and what
Right.
and what made it even
Right.
more fun, and Dre, you know this as a Spurs fan, and me watching from afar, all of us, I should say, watching from afar. Not only did he make a mockery of it, the sideline reporters bought into it,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they would have something put together that, and they would time it so well. Because I talked to a few execs that were on the air, especially with TNT and with ESPN. They would time it so well they can have it cut down to 30 seconds, and they can run like one more ad before, then they'll have that 30 they'll have that 30-second interview, and they'll look, and then they'll get back to business. Because Dad and I watched that a few times, and Dad would look at me and go, how do they do that? Because they were doing it during um Pops' trip to the finals against Cleveland.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
how do they know to do that? I'm like, Dad, trust me, it's a trick I'm still trying to find out. I was later told how they would do it, and it was later shown that when I was in Charlotte. But man,
Yeah. And I think I forever fell in love with Pop whenever TNT would do their shows, and they had their first and third quarter, or at the beginning of second or beginning of fourth
Mhm.
quarter
Yeah.
interviews, and it was Craig Sager that would be interviewing.
Those were the best. Those were the best.
I'm like, I'm seeing two titans of the sport, two titans
Yep.
of their industries, literally, and it's like, and you seeing this dance performed, where not only is Craig in on the joke, Craig doesn't mind being part of the joke,
Mhm.
right.
and he just rolls with it.
And sometimes Craig would suggest being part of the joke,
Yes, yeah,
especially when the jackets got louder and louder,
hmm
and they knew that they had a Spurs game.
hmm
Craig would just throw a suggestion out there and say, "Okay, let me have it tonight.
Mhm. I'm gonna bring out my eight. I'm gonna bring out my
bring up
eight.
my A game.
I'm gonna bring out my A jacket, and I want Pop to just zoom in on it."
That's a fact. That's a
Yeah.
fact. He's my goat. I mean, everybody, everybody can glamour to Phil with his 11 rings, but
He's
for
one of
me,
my he's one of my top four. Billy Cunningham, Pat Riley, Phil Jackson, and Gregg Popovich.
He
Those are my four.
of all the big time coaches that's come in the NBA in the last 50 years, he is my favorite. I will say that
amen.
he is
I,
my
Amen.
favorite.
I often equate the San Antonio Spurs because of Pop,
Yep.
equivalent to the NBA's version of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's a good. That's a
That's a
good
great
analysis.
analogy.
A good analogy.
Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Not
That's a
New
great
England.
First
Oh.
class organization.
Not New England.
Nope. Not New England, Pittsburgh. First
And I
class organization.
and I agree with that. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. People
Okay.
talk only about the front office. People
Okay.
talk only about the team. Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay.
You don't have-
And in the 70s, that's how people talked about the Steelers. Yeah, I
Okay.
agree with that.
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going with the Patriot aspect because um the two coaches obviously that didn't
Mhm.
like doing interviews.
Mhm.
You thought they were one way in front of the camera, but off the camera they were
Totally
complete
different.
opposites.
Mhm.
And obviously we know Belichick is complete opposite now, but that's neither here nor there. And just basically a decade of dominance from both franchises. Like both franchises dominated 2 decades. So that's why I was
Yeah, I can see that.
looking at it from that perspective. But I can see the Pittsburgh aspect as well.
The only reason why I would not say the Patriots is because the Spurs basically were lacking controversy. And in fact, since you're a Spurs fan, Dre,
Mm.
you pretty much know the scuttlebutt about them all the way until about 2013 was,
They
good
were
Lord,
boring.
they're boring. They suck. Why
boring.
the heck are they at the
Oh
top
no,
of
they
the
were saying
league?
that before that.
Oh my gosh,
They-
no.
they
Anything
were
but
saying that.
them. Yeah.
I can tell you that Cole, they were saying that about the Spurs in the Hemisphere days.
Yeah.
When they played at the Hemisphere Arena. They adapted to the state of Texas because you can just see it from the basket stanchions and how they had the silhouette of Texas all around the Hemisphere Arena, but they were
Mhm.
called boring then.
Mhm.
And
Well-
they had a couple of the top
I'll push back slightly. They were called boring after George Gervin was there.
I'm gonna say this: the reason why y'all called the San Antonio Spurs led by Gregg Popovich is born is because you didn't understand the fullness of the game of basketball.
Mhm.
correct mundo.
That-
That's
that-
gonna
that-
end
I
it.
tell people that all the time. That's why Tim Duncan is one of my favorite players because he was so fundamentally sound. That's why he's called. the
Can
big-
you say that? Can you say that again, please, Dre?
big-
Did you
big-
say fundamentally sound?
fundamentally sound, and that's how I learned the game. So that's why I had a fixation for the San Antonio Spurs. They don't care about having a star player. Obviously, they
Mhm.
knew Duncan was the face, but everybody gonna eat. They didn't
Yep.
care if you had 20 something this night. They didn't care if you had 14 this night. The objective of the game is to win. The right person is gonna get the
Yeah.
ball. I was just talking about the whole they ushered in the international game. Well, the Spurs they also ushered in the corner three. No
Mhm.
other team could shoot that corner three better than San Antonio.
And the first Spur I can tell you who shot that, or the first two I can tell you from as long as I've watched the game that shot that corner
I
three.
might know one of them you about to say.
Actually, I have three in mind. Mike Martz is one, or Mike Bratz is one.
Okay. Right.
Johnny Mitchell
I think those two is before my time.
and Johnny Moore, not Johnny Mitchell, Mike Mitchell, Johnny Moore, and Mike Bratz.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Sean Elliott.
Patty Mills was just in the corner all day long. Sean Elliott made a living. Memorial Day Miracle, hello, in the Alamo Dome in front of 40,000
Mhm.
people. Sean Elliott made a living in that corner.
Yes, sir.
He made a living in that. Sean's one of the reasons I love the Spurs, the pop version of the Spurs,
Mhm.
because,
Oh,
and I've had the pleasure of meeting Sean Elliott. I mean, let me be honest. Sean Elliott had my attention at the University of Arizona, and then to be snatched up by the Spurs, perfect fit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Tim Duncan used to mess with Sean Elliott when Sean became a member of the broadcast team. And you see Pop have this wicked smile on his face whenever Tim would like try to throw the ball off of his head or shoot it past him or something. But to call the Spurs boring, no. What the Spurs were, and a lot of us really knew it, they were fun. They were fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Yeah.
very fun to watch. That's
They
why
were
it killed
fun
me.
to
That's
watch.
why it killed me when people said they was boring. I said, okay, so y'all can have those teams that's Lob City. Y'all can have those
Right?
teams that are fancy. I want the team that's going to be in the finals. I want the team that's going to have the hardware at the end of the season. So y'all can go with the glitz and glamour all
The
you want. I want the team that at the end of the season is going to have a championship parade in their city. That's what I
Thank
care.
you.